In this video, I'd like to talk about the situation in the Middle East right now because, well, quite frankly, I think it's important if you don't follow geopolitics and just generally the situation over there for you to be aware of it for your safety. So yeah, let's get into the video. So just to provide some backstory how we got here, Israel and Palestine went to war once again. They've went to war many times during my life, and they went to war once again last year. So everyone kind of has a rough story about what's happening in Gaza. It's quite understandable. But in the last couple of weeks, Israel began bombing Hezbollah in Lebanon, as well as using unprecedented tactics in warfare, blowing up personal electronic devices manufactured by a Taiwanese company, as well as a Japanese company, basically US allies. And then Israel began to do airstrikes in Lebanon. Tons of airstrikes, which killed thousands of people, including around civilian areas. They killed a lot of the high command of Lebanon as well as Hezbollah. And it's Lebanon as well as Hezbollah is a Iranian ally. So yesterday, Iran went ahead and retaliated towards Israel and struck a lot of military infrastructure. There's two sides of the coin here. So Iran's saying they destroyed like 20 F-35 fighter jets. Israel is saying there's no damage whatsoever. So the truth is somewhere in the middle from what I've gathered. Israel lost probably around 6 or 7 fighter jets, as well as pretty much had a total loss of 1 airbase. So the Iranians did successfully hit Israel. They did successfully get past the Iron Dome defense system and all of that because they were using ballistic missiles rather than just normal, typical stuff that Israel typically gets hit in from surrounding countries. So anyhow, tension in the region is at a all-time high, essentially, since, I don't know, the Gulf Wars type of time frame. So things are not really doing too well in the Middle East, especially between Israel and the surrounding countries, and particularly Iran. So Iran expects Israel to retaliate once again and like hit them back. Because it's always this tit for tat crap in the Middle East, especially with Israel. So Israel is saying they're gonna hit Iranian nuclear as well as energy production facilities, and Iran is saying if their oil facilities get taken offline, their oil export facilities, because predominantly most exports go through one island in the south of Iran. If this gets hit, they will bomb nearby other Arab countries' oil fields. So they might hit Saudi oil fields as an example, as well as they will shut down oil export out of the Straits of Hormuz. This is, people have mentioned kind of the Strait of Hormuz stuff, that they could do this, but they haven't said quite how serious Iran is about this. The Iranians don't mind striking their oil fields and bringing their production completely offline, and the Saudis don't really have a good defense for this. Even Israel, with all the money and the equipment the US has sent them, more than basically any other country on the world, the Israelis couldn't stop the recent Iranian missile strike on their air bases and other military infrastructure. So essentially the situation in the Middle East is very, very bad right now, and these are two things you need to understand. A lot of people would just brush all of this off as just nonsense banter and posturing. And for a long time, I would as well. However, things are uniquely different now. So I want to cover a couple different things here. So Israelis specifically are the ones I'm more concerned about, because this is their like do or die moment. Their public support globally has been kind of going off a cliff lately, especially in the last 1-2 years since all of this, the Middle East conflict really began again. But really, it's been going down here a little before then too, but especially last year. They're losing their global support. Most young people my age do not support Israel whatsoever. When I was a kid, I saw what Israel did to Gaza. I forget when it was, like 2016 or 2014, 2012, I don't know, somewhere around here. And I was appalled by it. I thought Israel was a terrorist state from then on out. My opinion, I became more moderate over time, especially my political beliefs. However, I'm still not a fan of Israel. I don't support Israel, all of that. So this predominantly is because Israel's indiscriminate bombing and killing of kids. And this is what most young people share. And the Israelis know this, the Israeli government knows this. And as we age, we have more influence over the governments. And we also, people my age don't want these dumb wars in the Middle East. We don't want involvement with these people. We want all countries to just forget about them. They can enjoy, they can defend themselves, they can do their thing, but it's not our problem. We don't want our troops over there. We don't want to send money over there. We don't want to be involved with it. And that situation for Israel is quite problematic because they basically require tons and tons of support from the US as well as other European allies on a very frequent basis, as well as they rely on the fear that the US will come in if they're ever attacked. So it's Israel's kind of do or die moment right now. And that's what makes the situation uniquely different. Israel, before, they could kind of back off of things. But that's why they're going full steam ahead with this war in the Middle East. They've pretty much completely destroyed Gaza and Palestine now, and they are in the process of waging war in Lebanon. And after that, I don't know, I personally feel like if they succeeded in Lebanon, they would then attack Syria as well. They've already attacked many targets there and they're getting shelled from there. Basically, Israeli support is falling. This is their last time to really get their situation done, secure what they want, the land in the region, what they claim to be the security of the region. This is their last chance before really Western countries, in my opinion, start to wane their support more broadly for them. As well as, quite frankly, it's hard to... the war before, the one I saw as a kid between Israel and Gaza, it wasn't this bad. Israel didn't level Gaza. It wasn't completely destroyed. Israel didn't completely, they didn't drop hundreds and hundreds or thousands of bombs on Lebanon. They didn't move troops in. It was different. They can't really walk back from this situation now. That's something Israeli people should understand, because I've met plenty of Israeli people traveling, and I was friends with quite a few over the last few years. Not really anymore because of some things they said and how they were behaving. But it's something they didn't really fully understand, the situation, how serious it is there, how going back to Israel would be a threat to their lives. And many of them did, and now, from what it seems like, they cannot leave. All outbound flights are fully booked. But yeah, so I'll move on to the next point. That's one thing I want you to understand as well. It's Israel's do or die moment. They can't really walk back from this. So put yourself in their shoes. What are they going to do here? I think they will strike Iran. It might be a limited strike. Hopefully it is. But they don't seem to be afraid of escalation in the region. I believe they want it to get US intervention occurring. So it wouldn't surprise me if they do a bigger strike, target some oil production, refinery, or transport facilities, hoping to get Iran to retaliate in some way. Okay, moving on. What's the potential outcome of this situation? The immediate outcome of this situation and the escalation that might be about to happen. Well, like I mentioned before, the Straits of Hormuz, generally Iran is not a fan of the Gulf states as well as Saudi Arabia because of their behavior and basically negligence regarding the situation in the region. So what situation does that lead people in? So if you're in Dubai or the UAE, it's something I've felt for a very long time, but it was a risk staying there. To me, it's a very high risk now. If there's some strike between Israel and Iran, especially if the US gets involved, which they likely would shortly after, and there's any strikes on any Gulf states, oil fields, or anything like this, you might be safe in the city of Dubai, as an example. But you're gonna have issues with flying out. You're gonna have, just like in Israel right now, all flights, outbound flights being booked, if you can even get the airspace to fly out. So to me, if I was in Dubai, I'd be leaving right now. I'd be booking a flight within the next few days at the very latest and leaving to either my home country, Thailand, wherever it might be. Just the risk right now is too high to really see myself sitting there if I was in Dubai. Because if the Straits of Hormuz has issues, if the US and Iran and Israel have issues, especially if there's some sort of oil crisis going on, it's going to be a mess. It'll be hard to get imports into Dubai. It'll be hard to get the food imported into Dubai even. It's going to be a real big mess. And that's not something I want to risk. If I was living in Dubai doing business, I don't want all that stuff on my mind. or all those disruptions if they do come to pass. Are they likely? Who really knows? But they're definitely not a near zero chance anymore. And to me, if it's not a near zero chance, everything gets screwed up, I really don't want to be involved there. So yeah, that's one of the potential things. But so to be clear about that, Iran could block the Straits of Hormuz, blocking a lot of import-exports into places like Dubai, as well as shipping of oil out of the Gulf. So this would take off around 30% of all oil production in the world. Iran produces around 5-10%, but they would take off the extra 15 to 25% that the Saudis as well as other Gulf states can flex up to if some bigger war or strike occurred against Iran. So this would be catastrophic for the world and the oil markets, energy markets, global markets broadly, as well as, of course, as mentioned, it would impose likely flight restrictions and serious economic pain and suffering on Gulf states, including the UAE, where Dubai is, where many of y'all might live. So just keep that in mind. I would stay away from Dubai for now. That's personally what I do. Okay, finally, I'd like to talk briefly about investments, finance, and the economy. Things have gone much worse in the Arab region over the last year. So things were quite stable. Now things are incredibly unstable. If oil goes to $200, inflation's going to roar globally. There's going to be a crisis. The US cannot tolerate this happening. So they'll go into the Middle East and they'll start all the wars again. They'll go in, try to overthrow Iran. It's going to be an absolute mess. This will probably cause oil equities and oil broadly to skyrocket along with other energies such as coal, natural gas, whatever, just because there are different energy sources, as well as it'll once again show that relying on oil is a national security risk and you need to switch to more electric-based systems like China has done. So this is especially a concern because the US does not have much of its strategic petroleum reserve available. The Biden administration has depleted it further to a point where it's honestly quite negligible. China's reserves, I believe they hold a lot of unofficial reserves, and I believe their oil storage facilities would last their economy at least 10 months to a couple years. The US does not have this wiggle room. If oil imports and exports have issues in the Middle East, the economy and just the country is going to have serious issues. So I won't get into all of that, but this is a situation you also need to concern yourself from a portfolio level. So personally, what I've done is I have bought allocated a little bit more to oil equities, particularly producers that I've mentioned before on the channel regarding the portfolio updates. So the ones that are offshore around Africa, as well as South American companies that produce oil domestically in South America. Most of them are traded on the New York Stock Exchange or the Canadian Stock Exchange, Toronto Stock Exchange. But they produce in these countries, exclusively in these countries or regions, and they're not going to be affected by the Middle East situation. So I believe they're particularly interesting. Yeah, that's really what I'm doing, and hopefully things don't escalate too bad. Hopefully everyone stays safe. But personally, once again to reiterate, I would not be taking flights over Iran, anywhere in the Gulf states, the Middle East broadly, and I would certainly not go visit and live in Dubai right now. I would be leaving if I was there. So yeah, with that being said, that'll be all for this video. Hopefully things don't escalate, but yeah. If you have any thoughts or questions regarding what might happen or how this might affect markets, feel free to leave those down below, or if you have any thoughts about any of this. Yeah, with that being said, bye-bye.